Play/pause.
I tuned it. No, we have to use that one. Come on in, everyone. Shabbat Shalom. Thanks, Ella. Hey, what? Okay. Yeah. We are a full 2 minutes late. I am horrified. I know. What is happening? Terrible. Oh, my gosh.
Oh, no. Oh, for real?
Yeah. For real. For real.
It's not Ella's good one.
It's true.
It's not the one that Ella got for me.
All right, friends,
Stop it.
come on in.
Yours is much better.
All right. Ooh, hello, Shabbat Shalom. All right,
Wow.
so we are going to start tonight on page 11. A little singing to get us in the mood. So this is one we've been doing for a while. It's an oldie, but a goodie. It is towards the bottom of the page, and the words are Ki Eshmera Shabbats. Ki Eshmera Shabbat El Yishmereni. Ki Eshmera Shabbat El Yishmereni. yishmer ha-Shabbat, el yishmereni, ki yishmer ha-Shabbat, el yishmereni. Beautiful. So these weeks before the High Holy Days, we are usually a bit of a smaller crowd, and we're here in the chapel. But the wonderful thing about the chapel is that the acoustics in here are marvelous. So we hope that you will sing loud
along.
because the music will be so beautiful. But we're going to turn to our candle lighting, which is on page 2. Do you want to do that? Thank you, sir. So we always take a moment before we light the candles just to sort of try and allow the week to fade away, to have all of the stress just drop away from us, and take a moment to be able to bring in the spirit of Shabbat. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat. And we open our eyes to be able to enjoy just a little of the sweet taste of Shabbat with our kiddush. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pari hagafen. Some of the stores are already having their round chalots. It's not round challah time quite yet. It will be very soon. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. So when we come together to celebrate Shabbat, we always try to think of some ways in which we can acknowledge the fact that this time is different than any other time of the week, and not just that we are here together, that there is this idea that in Jewish tradition we believe that angels come into our homes and into our lives every time that we celebrate Shabbat together. And so we welcome those angels in on page 24 with the words of Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Asharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem LeShalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni LeShalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Seichem LeShalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. One of the beautiful things about being in this May Chapel space is that when we say that prayer of Shalom Aleichem, on the page opposite it, we have this text from Bereshit, the text of when Jacob is trying to find this new version of himself, this new chapter of his life, and he falls asleep with his head on a rock for a pillow, and he dreams of angels going up and down a ladder, the angels that you can see right behind us on this ladder. And the most beautiful thing about that story is not just that he's able to see angels, but it's that in the story they're going not only down, but up the ladder, reminding us that actually there are always angels in our midst, some of them just around us that we may not even know that they are there. And so when we rise to our feet to call each other to worship, we are reminded of the fact that maybe we too are those angels called to be a blessing to others. And so I'll ask you to turn to page 28. We'll rise and we'll call each other to worship with the words of the Baruch Hu. Yai la 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 la. Yai la 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 la. Lie, 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 lie. Yai lie, 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 lie. Yai la lie, 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 lie. Yai lie, 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 lie. Yai lie, 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 lie. Yai la lie, 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 lie. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach, HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. HaMevorach, HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. We read together on the bottom of 31. This
is an hour of change. Within it we stand, uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over?
Baruch atah Adonai Hama'ariv Aravim. On 33, as you taught Torah to those whose names I bear, teach me Torah too. Its mystery beckons, yet I struggle with its truth. You meant Torah for me. Did you mean the struggle for me too? Don't let me struggle alone. Help me to understand, to be wise, to listen, to know. Lead me into the mystery. Baruch atah Adonai Ohev Amo Yisrael. And we join in Shema on page 34. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam va'ed. Please be seated. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'elem asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha uvlechtecha v'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha uv'shartam le'ot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot bein einecha uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'visharecha leman tizkeru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'yitem kedoshim le'Elohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem le'Elohim ani Adonai Elohechem. On 39, standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there's no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together, and singing in the song that our ancestors sang at the shores of the sea on page 40 with Micha Mocha. Micha Mocha, Bailim Adonai, Micha Mocha, Nedar Bakodesh, no Ratzilot, Osei Fele, no Ratzilot, Osei Fele, Micha Mocha, Bailim Adonai, Micha Mocha, Nedar Bakodesh. Micha Mocha, we thank God for having given us freedom, but we follow it on page 42 with the words of Hashkivenu, thanking God for spreading a sukkah of peace, a shelter of peace over us wherever our freedom may take us. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Ufros aleinu sukkot shlomecha, ufros aleinu sukkot shlomecha. Amen. Shelter us beneath thy wings. Shelter us beneath thy wings. O Adonai, guard us from all harmful things. O Adonai, keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake with morning's light. Teach us, God, wrong from right. Amen. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Last night we had our Lilith Readers book club, and I honestly don't remember who I was having this conversation with, but someone was reminding me that whenever we get to this point in the service, sometimes I get so excited that I forget to tell people the page number. So I'm going to tell you the page number first, and then I'm going to tell you what we're doing. The page number is 46.
You get excited. It's really good.
But the reason that I always get so excited about this prayer on page 46 is that this prayer is called tefillah. It is the prayer. That's what tefillah means. Well, why I love it is really that when we say this prayer, you don't have to say these words at all. That when our ancestors put together this prayer, which is a very long prayer, we don't even do the whole thing here, they intended for this to be the moment where you could be totally silent, where you could be offering the prayers of your hearts. And so if you wish to read the words on the page, if they speak to you, now that I've told you the page number, then you are more than welcome to do so. But if instead this is a time when you'd like to offer the prayers of your hearts, you are also welcome to do that. Regardless, if you are able, I would ask you to please rise and we'll join together in words of tefillah. Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi agi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei hakol, v'zocher chasdei avot v'imaot, u'mevi geula livnei v'neihem, lema'an shemo be'ahava.
Melech Ozer Umoshia Umagin. Baruch Atah Adonai, Magin Avraham Ve'ezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayei HaKol Atah Rav Lehoshia, Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed, Mechayei HaKol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim Ve'ofech Olim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem Emunato Lishenei Afar, Michamocha Baal Gevurot, Umido Melech, Melech Memit Umechaye, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman Atah L'chayot HaKol.
Baruch Atah Adonai, Mechayei HaKol. Please be seated. On the top of page 61, I invite you to join with us in the English. Grant us peace, your most precious gift, O eternal source of peace, and give us the will to proclaim its message to all the peoples of the earth. Bless our country as a safeguard of peace, its advocate among the nations. May contentment reign within our borders, health and happiness within our homes. Strengthen the bonds of friendship and fellowship among all the inhabitants of every land. Plant virtue in every soul, and may the love of your name hallow every home and every heart. Praised are you, Eternal One, who blesses our people with peace. Baruch Atah Adonai, Hamavarech et Amo Yisrael Bashalom. I know that so many of us are here tonight to pray for peace in our country and especially in the land of Israel. But so too, I know that there are many of us here who are coming tonight, as we do every week, to pray for those in our own community and those around the world who are in need of healing. And so we take a few moments at this time to be able to offer those healing prayers. If there's someone who you're thinking of who could use some healing and who would appreciate their names being shared here, I would invite you to do so at this time. So tonight, too, we're thinking of Arlene Alper and Eric Ash, of Moshe Aaron ben Leah Bela, Chana bat Rochelle Riza HaKohen, of Carl Greenberg and Nathan Levinson, of Kalanitz Meira bat Sarah, of Rick, of Marilyn and Jim Schlitter, of Randy Smith, of Jane Tucker and Lacey Weinstein, and of all those we're keeping in our hearts. For each of them, we turn to page 253, and we offer these words, asking God for healing to come their way.
One day.
Let us say, Amen. Mi sheberach imotzeinu mekor habracha lavotzeinu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, shalom bimromav, oh ya'aseh shalom aleinu. Ve'yakol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, u'ya'aseh shalom aleinu. Ve'yakol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, oh ya'aseh shalom aleinu. Ve'yakol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. So these weeks leading up to the high holidays, for those of you who are Shabbat regulars or have been coming for years, you know the weeks before the holidays are usually kind of Shabbat light here at Temple Israel. Because we're trying to save our voices a little bit. We're trying to save our really good sermons for the high holidays. Not that it would be a waste to say it to you, but we want to say the really good stuff then. So our intention had been that tonight was going to be a little bit of a lighter service and sermon, but after everything that happened in Lebanon this week, it felt like there would be a very large elephant in the room if we did not talk about that. So I'd like to share just a little bit with you tonight, some of the facts, which I think you know, and then just a little bit sort of about what we have been hearing in the Jewish community this week. So the facts, which again, I know that so many of you know, so I will just sort of go over the basics here. Obviously, you all know that since October 7th, or I guess since October 8th, that Israel has been at war with Hamas, which is the political and paramilitary terrorist organization that runs Gaza, one of the Palestinian territories in Israel. We've all seen that. It's been on the news a lot, obviously. What hasn't been on the news quite as much, though, is that while this has been happening, nearly every day, Hezbollah, which is the political paramilitary terrorist group that runs Lebanon, they have been shooting rockets into northern Israel. So many so that thousands of Israelis who live in the north have been displaced and are living elsewhere in Israel. That's actually why if you go to Israel now, so many of the hotels are totally full, not of tourists, of course, but with all of these people who have been displaced from their homes. And for those of you who've not been to Israel ever or in a long time and you only see Israel and Lebanon on the map, it's a little bit hard to understand what exactly this means. But if you think about how often those of us in St. Louis go to Illinois, right? Or you go to a baseball game and you see Illinois, it's just right across the river, right? It's a 15-minute drive from here, and then you cross the river, and that's the border between Missouri and Illinois. Well, the border between Israel and Lebanon is not that big at all. There is no river that divides them. There's really just sort of like a kind of grassy area, and it is so close that when you are in Israel, if someone is standing on the border in Lebanon, you can absolutely see them. I mean, you can see their faces. It is that close. And in fact, most trips that you take to Israel, they will show you that because it's cool that you can see Lebanon most of the time. It is obviously not cool now. And the reason that you haven't heard all of that much about it on the news is because Israel has been able consistently to defend itself from all of these rockets that are being shot from Lebanon into the state of Israel, into the land of Israel. So this week, of course, everything changed because in the middle of this week, again, as I'm sure many of you read, all of a sudden in the middle of the week, There were members of Hezbollah who were carrying with them walkie-talkies. They had been told to not use phones anymore because there was a concern that Israel could hack their phones. So instead, they were using very budget technology because they thought that that would work better. And they found that their walkie-talkies had been sabotaged, and they all exploded simultaneously. And so many of these Hezbollah fighters were badly injured, many people were killed, and then there were a few other attacks this week as well, very similar in Lebanon. And even though Israel hasn't claimed ownership of this, we know very well that this was Israel. So I have heard really two very different thoughts from the Jewish community on these attacks. The first thing that I've heard again and again from so many people is fear. Because we understand that even though this was an attack that in fact took out many Hezbollah fighters, people who are absolutely in favor of the destruction of the state of Israel, that there is also, of course, this tremendous fear that the fact that we struck them does not mean now that they won't strike back. That, in fact, we have really learned of our enemies, of course, that they seem to be kind of like a hydra, and you cut off one head and it just makes the other heads come out. This also certainly makes it seem as if a ceasefire is not anywhere near on the horizon. And there is, of course, an increased fear for those of us in the States that this will also increase the anti-Semitism that we are feeling, even just the knowledge that the Israelis were able to use very basic technology to do this damage. I have heard a lot of fear from people, and that is absolutely understandable. I've also heard, I will not say that glee is the appropriate word, but let's at least call it pride. Because there have been a lot of us that said, that was some next level James Bond Mission Impossible spy game activity, and it's kind of amazing. It is actually kind of incredible to think that Israel was able to pull off these attacks. Because we're still not entirely sure how it happened, but we do know that for all of Hezbollah's technology to have somehow been infiltrated in that way, that there must mean that there were somehow spies within Hezbollah, that somehow Mossad, somehow Israel must have gotten into the inner workings of Hezbollah to be able to make this happen. And we don't know if it was 2 months ago or 2 years ago that they did this, but whatever it is, that they were clearly carefully biding their time. Obviously, even though none of us knew about it, in Israel, people knew it was coming. Rabbi Michael spent a lot of time, am I allowed to say this? Rabbi Michael spent a lot of time on the phone with a friend of his this week, who I won't share, but who is someone who has some political clout in Israel, let's just say, but who is also going off to his third tour of duty. And he's my age, by the way. You don't want people who are 45 fighting in your military, but he is. And he knew already that he was going up north, which sounded strange to us, but now we know why. But it is remarkable that Israel was able to pull this off because it means that not only was Hezbollah able to be infiltrated, but we have to assume that it means that they're not able to as easily communicate with each other, that many of their fighters were killed, that now we know who the fighters were because they all were the ones who had these walkie-talkies, and that we will hope that it would sow some sort of real distrust in them and maybe even make them give up. So I've certainly heard a lot of pride and a lot of, let's say, again, not glee, but maybe just a small amount of joy. So between these two very distinct feelings that I think probably many of us in this room have actually had both of those responses, both the fear and the pride that this is that Israel's military who is able to do this. I was thinking these past few days about exactly what to say to you tonight, and I found myself thinking, here we are in Elul, and it is just a short time before the High Holy Days. And what each of us is supposed to be doing at this time is we are supposed to be doing this act of tshuva. We're supposed to be thinking about what we can do personally that will make us better and that will bring us back to a better version of ourselves, whatever that looks like. And so what I found myself referring to and thinking about this week was the moment when the Jewish people became the Jewish people. And that moment was not when God called to Abraham and said, Lech lecha, go to the country, the land that I will show you. And that moment was not when Moses said to Pharaoh, let my people go. The moment that the Jewish people became the Jewish people was when they were fleeing Egypt and Pharaoh's army was behind them and they are able to cross the sea, and then they turn back and the sea closes, because that was when they knew they were free and that God had redeemed them. And it is this remarkable, victorious moment in our people's history. But in the Midrash, in Shemot Rabbah, the Midrash that helps explain these moments in the Torah that perhaps we don't understand in depth, in the Midrash it says that when this great moment happened and the waters crash on Pharaoh's army and they are drowning, that the angels start rejoicing because they were so excited that the Jewish people are free. And God says to the angels, how dare you? How dare you rejoice when my creatures are drowning? That God is there trying to remind the angels and each of us that even in those moments where it seems like perhaps we're experiencing a victory or we don't know what comes next, still that we have to maintain the fact that we are humans and that we are Jews. And that as Jews, we have to be able to look at every single moment with the kind of morality and teachings that Torah gives us. And so I look at everything that has happened in Lebanon this week, and even though I am still feeling that mixture of fear and pride, what I'm trying to do in my own tshuva is at least say, give me the strength, God, to not rejoice at the downfall of my enemies. Instead, let me feel at this time not fear, but pride that I know that we can get to the path ahead, that we can find a place of peace, but that we should still be continuing to pray that somehow we are able to do this in a way that will limit the loss of life, that will allow us to get to a point where whatever lies ahead for the people of Israel, not just Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel, but Am Yisrael, all of us, that we will still be able to feel good about the people that we are and that we have been every step of the way. So following our service tonight, Rabbi Michael we have a pop-up class. Rabbi Michael is going to share with you some really remarkable teachings and poetry that he was able to learn this summer when he was in Israel from Israelis who are experiencing this themselves. It is kind of remarkable stuff. So if you are able to join after the service, because this is a pop-up class and some of you have been in there before, you know that really pop-up means how long?
20 minutes to 2 hours. 20 minutes because some people have reservations.
20 minutes, and I will call Rabbi Michael at 30 minutes to make sure that he really is keeping it to 20 minutes. But it is beautiful, and I hope that it will give you just a little more inspiration as well as we think about all of the prayers that we have for ourselves and for the state of Israel. So I'll ask you now, if you will, to please rise, and we're going to turn to page 282 for the Aleinu. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. On 287, ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו So at this time, we recall with love the names of those taken from us in recent days, and our hearts go out to their families in sympathy as we recall their names. Boston Brown, Jerome Jerry Glick, and Dan McLaughlin. We now recall the names of those, the anniversary of whose death occurs on this Shabbat, and whose names have been inscribed in the archives of our congregation or on the Wall of Honor for perpetual memorial. S. Charles Bear, Ida Baumgarten, Rosella Cutter, Carol Elbert, Evelyn Rotman Fleischer, Joseph Jack Foreman, Eliza Frank, Isaac Frank, Melville D. Friedman, Janice Gitt, Harry Goldberg, Lawrence Larry Goldfarb, Private Fred H. Golding, Pauline Ziegler Gordon, Elizabeth Gould, Rose Greger, Sidney Harris, Marion Hirschman, Adali Kessel-Holm, Mary Isaacs, Amelia Jacobson, Saul Kaiser, Charity Roberts Kalish, Benjamin Kessel, Aaron Lander, Morris Lansbaum, Second Lieutenant Robert Leventhal, Bob Levy, Gussie Levy, Albert Melman, Abraham Miller, Jesse Meyer, Samuel Pasternak, Dr. Robert Rockman, Lorraine Rosenberg, Theodore Rosenberg, Samuel Schoenbrun, Sandra Ellen Schultz, Hazelmeyer Schweig, Anna Ninzanski Scherberg, Michael Sherman, Rose Siegfried, Ben Silverman, Adeline Gill Simon, Sally B. Simon, Joanne Glazer Steinbaum, Carl M. Vetzberg, Sigma B. Victor, May Tash Weiss, Paul Richard Wing, Alice Richter Winston, Clara Goldie Adler Wolf, and Stephen Blake Wolfson. So with these names and the names that we keep in our hearts, we turn together to the words of the Mourner's Kaddish on page 294.
Yitgadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah, v'alma divrach chirutei, v'yamlich malchutei, b'chaye chon u'v'yom echon, u'v'chaye dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kariv imru amen. Yehei Shemei Rabbah mevarach la'alam u'mei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal Shemei dekudesha b'richu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechmata, damiran ba'alma v'imru amen. Yehei Shlama Rabba min Shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. May the source of peace and peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved. And we say, amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imeru amen. So for our closing song tonight, we are going to, let me hear first, a song that we often sing in the spirits of tshuva, in the spirit of returning to our best selves. Yeah, that's good. It's always a question of, do we need a capo? So we'll join together in the words of We Return, and then if you are joining us for the class, we invite you to get a snack and then hang a left and meet us in the boardroom. We return, we return.